Okay, it's working. Uh, I was thinking about doing this after I finally replayed it all and really got to break it all down for YouTube in extra detail, especially as there are still a couple of stories that I don't know in this series from beginning to end, but the Metal Gear Solid franchise, or just Metal Gear, as would probably be more accurate given the fact that this franchise started out as Metal Gear on the MSX and later the Nintendo Entertainment System. So it's really more accurate to call it Metal Gear. That being said, though, it's a franchise that the minute that I experienced it, even slightly, there was something trippy about it overall. And I say that as someone who doesn't always like to be called a conspiracy theorist, but I'm a conspiracy theorist, as many people would freak out and call me because I am specifically pointing out one thing or another that is actually happening in the world that the world doesn't really even care to actually talk about properly. Let me guess. I'm just trying to see. Uh, Hopefully it's going to work okay. Uh, I'm not sure how else to help the stream bitrate or whatever the hell they're telling me to do. Honest to God, I'm still kind of new at some of this crap. At least because I'm so used to just using my PlayStation 4 to stream games before. That's just kind of how it became for a while. But so yeah, I was raised that way thanks to my mom, and because of my mom, I very much took conspiracy theories seriously. In the modern day, you really should be too. Bottom line. And especially when you become a Christian and you know that there is something evil lurking in the shadows, lurking in the world as a whole, controlling our governments however the hell it can. If you can accept that as a Christian, you should be able to accept the fact that conspiracy theories are something to pay attention to for a reason. After all, if you are a Christian, you are willing to accept that the prophecy of Revelations is going to eventually come true. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I feel like Metal Gear is worth talking about. Because Metal Gear really touches on the likes of of conspiracies and what is what's the word I'm looking for here? What is supposed to be beyond just theories. It's because we know that eventually the beast system is going to happen. That they are going to demand that people mark their bodies either on their hand or forehead for even engaging in general commerce. And people, sometimes understandably so, find Metal Gear hard to take seriously as a story, as a sci-fi that you're watching unfold before you with these games. But yet, there's a reason why you actually should be. Now, thing is, I don't know if Hideo Kojima himself is actually a conspiracy theorist. I've never seen any sort of confirmation of him just saying, "Yeah, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I shamelessly believe that this stuff can and will eventually happen in the world." Any of that stuff. I've never heard anything of the sort. So I am not trying to claim that this man may have written Metal Gear knowing 100% that these conspiracies needed to be talked about, that they needed to be focused on, even just slightly. But yet, it is extremely creepy how much Metal Gear has foretold and will continue to foretell if you are a Christian especially. Because I started this franchise with Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. I know, for all those who are Metal Gear fans who know how the storyline goes and everything, yes, I know. Terrible place to start with Metal Gear Solid 4. I 100% agree. That being said, the reason why I actually got invested in doing that, that we got invested as a whole, is something that was very specific, very unique. And I'm just gonna try and really quick pull the picture myself, because it's it's mind-blowing when you see it side by side. Because if I just told you this, you wouldn't even remotely believe me. And understandably so. So I'm just trying to pull it up in the likes of... Okay, here we go. I'm just gonna pin that for me. And save image. Literally. Let me just kind of just get this tweaked to a degree where it's a good side by side. Same nose, porn stash, mullet, smokes the same too. No joke. My grandpa is a real life Vietnam War veteran. So that was like so specific and ain't even funny. Like no joke. it and it blew my mind wide open so much it's not even funny. I This series just immediately got trippy as hell. As I may have seen the last chapter first, but the game starts off with the infamous line from Old Snake, "War has changed." And talks about a future where the world's economy is fueled by war. So PMC groups fight wars simply for upholding an economy. And it gets fucking freakier straight off the bat there, with the idea of the nanomachines and how the nanomachines have done a lot of fucked up things in this franchise. And the big thing with this one specifically is that nanomachines are used to ID tag weapons for the sake of weapons not being freely used anymore, to where you can't pull a trigger on a gun without being properly tagged for it. And that the new nanomachines are needed in order to actually even buy guns and get them unlocked for you. If you know about the Mark of the Beast system, and you know that that is only inevitable, you would know specifically that this shit is not just no big deal. This stuff is literally the Revelation's prophecy. And it gets so incredibly freaky the more that I dove into the stories, because I went out of my way to get it digitally originally on PlayStation Network for the PS3. The original Metal Gear Solid. This game is as old as I am. Came out in 1998, and it was a hallmark for video games as an art form due to the fact that they took quite a few steps towards making a very cinematic experience for a video game, and it still being a video game. Because the thing is, I feel like some people are a little harsh on the focus on the story in some of these games, thinking that it's too hardcore. But yeah, if you apparently don't like a huge focus on story to that degree, that you are sometimes watching it more than playing it, like it is with this game, then no, you probably wouldn't like these games. That being said, though, if you are engaged in the likes of deep, complex storylines, the Metal Gear is definitely for you. And they have become far more accessible recently, or at least they started to be. As there is going to be a Master Collection Volume 2 eventually, where where more of the games will be put on more of the consoles. That being said, I can't guarantee that that would mean that Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots would actually be included in that or not. I sure hope so, but it's hard to say for certain. That being said, with Volume 1 of the Master Collection being out now, the likes of the original game, the original MSX games, the original NES games, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, all available on all modern systems. It's available on computers via Steam. It's available via PlayStation 4 and 5. It's available via Switch. It's available via Xbox One and Series X and S. It's completely accessible now, at least to start getting into now. And it is a trip, especially when you are not afraid of conspiracies. Because bottom line, most people choose to run away from conspiracies because they're just too afraid of it being legit. That they are too afraid of that being what is legit going on in the world. So they're like, la 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 la, can't hear you. Even though I definitely clearly can because I'm freaking the fuck out. I mean, seriously though. That's just the truth behind that. Let's be real here. And Metal Gear gets trippy on the conspiracies. Just with the original game that I recently did, as well as Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake. So the original MSX games, I have completed both of them via streams. And while I am glad I actually put the time into finally doing both of them, they are really definitely dated games. Even though I would still say that Metal Gear 2 is a very a very impressive game for its time, with the depth that Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake has for being a 2D game. But the original game for sure is very primitive with how you play it and everything. It's to where I remember there being a Metal Gear 1 remake that a fan was doing being announced. And the idea was supposedly that they were going to basically take the gameplay from the original Metal Gear Solid and or maybe even Metal Gear Solid 2 or 3 even, taking all of that classic Metal Gear Solid era gameplay and making that the basis for a remake of Metal Gear 1. And supposedly he actually got David Hayter, the voice of Snake, to reprise the role for it. And Konami shut it the fuck down. I'm sorry, but this kind of shitty behavior from corporations gets fucking old, man. Bottom line, because it would be one thing if it was like a game that was actually being sold for real cash and all that shit, but instead it was just a fan project out of passion. And you guys aren't wanting to let that happen? It's fucking weird, man. It's fucking weird. It's part of what I'm a bit annoyed at when it comes to how fan games are treated a lot of the times, because a lot of it really is just out of love for these franchises. That's that's it, man. It's not about us trying to take advantage of something, some established franchise's fame and make money off of it. It's just because we loved it too. So what's the fucking problem? Hell, if anything, it's going to fucking also bring more attention to your official games, and if anything, that's a plus. At least I'd sure fucking think so. But regardless, I'll say this, that the games definitely still have an engaging story that especially would be a lot better with today's production quality. With, voice acting by the actual established voice actors of the franchise. Like, that alone would elevate the storylines a lot for Metal Gear 1 and 2. That being said, at its core, even with the original, there is a believable conspiracy being told in that story. A believable conspiracy of the man who's responsible for all the war that is going on in the game being the guy on both sides. Because that is legitimately shit that happens in these conspiracies in the first place. And that's because when you're especially a Christian, you know exactly who the real number one enemy is right now, and that's Satan. When you are willing to accept that, you can very easily see how that is a legit thing in the real world. Because the enemy manipulates both sides in whatever way they need to, just to keep shit just going over and over and over and over and over and over and fucking over again. So that's why Big Boss is a very profound villain. Bottom line. Ever since the beginning, he was a profound villain. When you can consider that much. Now, Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake. That game definitely kicked up the story a lot, for sure. Because there wasn't too much detail being expanded on in the original Metal Gear, sadly. And I think it would benefit a lot if that game was remade today with also the story in mind of the entire franchise so that you can lay it out in more detail. And by then, I wish that Hideo Kojima could come back, because while I am hopeful enough for the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, Metal Gear Solid Delta, that's coming out, for PS5 and PC and so on and so forth, I it's still um, hard to trust Konami themselves specifically. And bottom line, no one was really talented at handling Metal Gear than Hideo Kojima because he was so invested in the storytelling. And that is something that, when it's lacking, especially when Konami intervened so much with Metal Gear Solid 5's development cycle that the game suffered as much as it did, then yeah, there's no questioning it that Mr. Kojima really is the only guy for Metal Gear. Bottom line. That's just how it is. That being said, I at least think that remakes could go over well depending on how they execute them. And I'm hopeful for this. If only because I also had another Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater experience that was kind of a remake to begin with anyways. Metal Gear Solid 3D. I initially did want to play Snake Eater on the PS2 completely from beginning to end, but the copy that I got a hold of originally didn't work the greatest, which sucked. So I then found Metal Gear Solid 3D. It was as cheap as it was for the 3DS. I used my Circle Pad Pro to have access to an extra joystick for camera movement. It was perfect. It was perfect. And that is why I am actually hopeful that Metal Gear Solid Delta could actually be a good game. At least I hope so. That being said, Metal Gear 2, the storyline there, it gets far more into the emotional manipulation that all these sides are going through. Because Big Boss is an emotional manipulator. That's the big point behind Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake's storyline and the conflict with Big Boss himself. Because he is emotionally manipulating as many sides as he can, however the hell he can. To where you have Schneider coming back, who's getting emotionally manipulated. Gray Fox coming back, who's emotionally manipulated. You have freaking like all these sides of this war being emotionally manipulated in one way or another. And at the very core of Big Boss's whole mindset is there is no place for us during times of peace. There is nowhere that is willing to accept us, the soldiers, the heroes of the war. Because when we come back, we're despised. Always. And that's sadly true. Veterans get shit on actually quite hardcore, and it's a bummer because these people had the guts to do a lot more than others during times where, whether they are emotionally manipulated or not, a lot of them tend to have very good intentions in going to war for the sake of protecting their country, their loved ones, whether that be their friends or their family, even just the average bystander. And that's why For example, Rambo, First Blood actually is a beloved movie because that movie it points to the core of that whole situation. You have John Rambo coming back from war, and he's just trying to mind his own damn business, just just doing something that an ally of his asked him to do on his deathbed. And how much the freaking cops just harass the poor bastard. Down to where he's freaking finally breaking at the end of it all, even with his commanding officer coming back to try and tell him to fucking stand down finally. And he's like, why? Why? I fucking went to war thinking that I was just doing the right thing. And I come back and I am just called shit like baby killer. And that kind of realism to Metal Gear's story is clearly a part of why veterans guarantee you would bond with this story, because it's fucking gnarly, man. And with everything that happened with Metal Gear 2, it only got fucking crazier, dude, from there. Crazier in ways that people would clown if you're a fucking conspiracy theorist, or people who are actually going to take that seriously and be like, this is fucked up, but this is, it's kind of having the balls to actually say certain things. And this game got fucking trippy, not just on on it, like I mean, where do we even start? This is yet another orchestrated war from all angles possible. Down to the fact that Snake is being sent in to both do things for the sake of the terrorists and doing things for the sake of very corrupt individuals in power at the United States. And he just fucking wanted to be left alone 2 times over now. And that being a repeated issue is for a reason too, because I guarantee you plenty of veterans went through the same kind of issue too, being called back into war so many times, thinking, now can I finally be done with this? How about now? Now, please now? But it never seems to really actually come around for a lot of people. And some of them die, obviously, in war. And for some, it just freaking scars them emotionally forever, clearly. And with Snake, he's yet again just trying to walk the hell away from shit that happened, especially because while it wasn't a story detail mentioned in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake specifically, it was later on a story detail that got really, really, really touched deep upon. And that is the cloning stuff that happens in Metal Gear. That starts in this game. As Solid Snake ends up being a clone of Big Boss, the guy who was his enemy, to where, while it may not have actually been in the original game, it had to have been gnarly that even if it was written in later, that Snake literally dealt with his father literally telling him that he's his father as he's dying, being burned alive. Fucking gnarly, dude. And it gets even fucking trippier as it goes into how Snake has a brother, Liquid Ocelot, the clone that wasn't actually as successful as Solid Snake. And he literally is trying to somehow achieve the dream that Big Boss had for Outer Heaven. A place that war would just continue forever. And because of that, give the veterans a place that they're always needed, that they're not just pushed away. And he literally wants to somehow surpass Big Boss simply because he was seen as a failure to Big Boss anyways. And he's going out of his way to literally pose as another person while trying to actually get Snake to do his bidding by activating Metal Gear Rex, the Metal Gear in this game. And the conspiracies only get deeper with nanomachines. Something that is disguised as just a medical shot that's supposed to soup up a soldier, turn him into a full-on super soldier. And it ends up being a retrovirus created for the simple purpose of targeting people based on their genes, their DNA, called FoxDie. As someone who was vaccine injured, who became high-functioning autistic because of it, the whole nanomachine shit in Metal Gear immediately stuck out to me hardcore. For a reason. And it continuously got even crazier with how some people just were trying to follow orders because they had things like their loved ones being held hostage purposefully to get them to do another person's bidding, another corrupt official. And then there is someone known as Liquid Ocelot in this game, known as Liquid Ocelot only in Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 4. He's known as Revolver Ocelot since this game. And he becomes basically one of the biggest manipulators of the series, somehow playing as many sides as possible, just fooling everyone possible into just doing their bidding. And it fucking gets crazy there alone. Down to where he's under orders from the President of the United States. And then Metal Gear Solid 2 happens. 1 second. I might have to hold off on Metal Gear Solid 2. But if there are certain things to sum up, it points out the Illuminati being a thing just under the name of the Patriots. And creepily enough, you find out that they were all fucking dead for years by the end of the game. And that some sort of creepy AI thing is actually controlling the Patriots. And we are currently in a time that AI is becoming very, very commonplace. And is one of the things that we should never have even begun to fuck with. Bottom line. And it only gets trippier and trippier, down to finding what started the conflict in the games with Big Boss, and how his mentor was someone who literally posed as a villain just for her country, just being used to where she doesn't even get her fucking grave marked at the end. And then Metal Gear Solid 4, where literally the whole fucking world runs on an economy designed only around war and ID tagging guns and the Mark of the Beast system. All there. This is why Metal Gear actually deserves to be looked at a lot closer. Bottom fucking line, man. Because it is crazy how fucking detailed, how close to reality the conspiracies in Metal Gear are. I don't know if Hideo Kojima actually intended to be accurate in this or not, but it's somehow ridiculously accurate in a way that is just bone-chillingly creepy. Metal Gear 2 was great to look at, but Metal Gear Solid 2, that one is going to be hardcore to look at. And I wonder if Hideo Kojima really is actually a conspiracy theorist, or if he just made these stories up and then went, I actually foretold shit, what the hell? I genuinely want to know that guy's thoughts about this, because this is crazy, man. It is so incredibly crazy that it would it would be impactful to have him kind of like talk about this stuff if that really is the case too. Like, because honestly, Hideo Kojima inspired me quite a bit as a game developer, as wanting to be a game developer. I mean, and I'm praying the absolute best for him. I may have only played a tiny bit of Death Stranding. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it yet, but I wanted to check it out because I liked what he pulled off with Metal Gear, and also I got this brand new recently. Zone of the Enders. This is another franchise that Hideo Kojima pulled off while he was at Konami. They're basically mecha games. And because of that, it's something I'm gonna eventually check out too of his. But all that being said, thank you all for watching, and God bless you all, and please, any of you guys that are Christians, help pray for Hideo Kojima, because I'm praying the best for that guy, especially after how Konami treated that guy like shit on his way out, it seemed. God bless you all.